Well, I guess it's time to come back to the usual Monday spot for navel-gazing, right? Cheers. Well, welcome back everybody to me trying to do a weekly navel-gazing on Monday. Um, this is me trying to get back into like the swing of things. And yeah, we'll do the usual thing. I talk about the books that I read, and then I talk about the books that I plan to read, and then I talk about the videos I made, and then I talk about the videos I plan to make, and then it all descends into madness. So, let's get started, right? All right. I did actually read quite a few books last week, so I guess good for me, sort of, I think. Like the first one was definitely me finishing the very good High Weirdness by Eric Davis, which is, as I already mentioned, a book on the psychedelic influences on Terence McKenna on the one hand, and Robert Anton Wilson on the other hand, and of course Philip K. Dick. And I like Robert Anton Wilson. I really like Philip K. Dick. It made sense to read that book. So I did it. Um, if you're not interested in that very specific part of obscure knowledge, then probably not a book for you. But if you're interested in it, then yeah, go read it. It's good. Then I did, of course, reread Use of Weapons and reread The State of the Art, both by well, Ian M. Banks. Both are part of the Culture series, although the State of the Art is a bit of a short story collection. And these are part for the ongoing, although very slow because I'm really bad at, stuff, read along of the Culture series. So we had our conversation on Thursday, so we talked about it a bit, and it was great. I had fun talking about it. They are obviously really good books, so there's that. What else did I read? I did, in fact, do a read of Philip Roth's The Plot Against America, which I did, in fact, really enjoy. It's a really good book. It's also a very depressing book. So there's that. And then I started a reread, and I'm gonna finish it either tonight or tomorrow morning. A quick reread of The Yiddish Policeman's Union by Michael Chabon, which is absolutely fantastic. I have never talked about it on the channel like in an explicit video, a dedicated video, but I think I've mentioned before that I think it's a really good book. So yeah, that's what I did read, and I did of course read or I'm still reading a book by Christopher Douglas that is called If God Meant to Interfere, American Literature and the Rise of the Christian Right. There's reasons why I'm reading this, and they are kind of tying into the stuff that I want to read um, tomorrow and the next couple of days. So, what am I planning to read? Well, I am planning to reread The Da Vinci Code by Dan motherfucking Brown because I have to, because I want to torture myself. So that's definitely going to happen. So there's that, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I'm reading this book about American literature and the Christian right, because it does have an extra a chapter on Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code, and I'm very interested in reading that. See, I'm doing research. So yeah, that's one of the things. Rereading the Da Vinci Code, I read it like 20 years ago, so right when it came out, so I remember very little. I suspect it will make me very angry, but what you gonna do? So I did that. So I plan to do that. What I'm gonna read after that, I don't fully know. Possibly, probably I'll do a quick reread of Foucault's Pendulum by Umberto Eco, and then I'll just do other stuff that comes up that I think about and that I'm intrigued in reading. We will see how all of that goes. Yeah, videos and stuff, right? Well, I did manage to make two videos, so I guess that's good. I finally. Oh yeah, right. I did also reread In Ascension. I forgot. I did also reread In Ascension to make the video that I made about In Ascension by Martin McInnes that went up last week, and a staggering 50 something people have watched it. So thank you very much if you're part of those 50 people. Otherwise, I don't know, go read the book and watch the video. I think it's a fairly good one for me. So that's a video I made. And then I made a video that came out yesterday about the ongoing debate about the end of the golden age of epic fantasy, or the supposed death of epic fantasy that some booktubers have been proclaiming. And that one is doing really, really well. It's already over 300 views. So what we learned from that is something that we probably should talk about in a minute. But yeah, it's going really well. If you haven't watched it yet, I don't know, check it out. I think I'm making some good points there. There's a lot of discussion going on there. So thanks for actually commenting on it. I really appreciate that. We're having a bit of a conversation there, which I think is cool. And that's all the videos I made last week. So what about videos this week? Well, I guess ideally I'll make one on Use of Weapons by Ian M. Banks before I forget everything about the book again. And then I'd better make one on The State of the Art by Ian M. Banks before I forget everything that is in that book. So these are definitely videos that need to come soon. I want to get my shit together when it comes to that culture read along. So that's going to happen very much. The other part is, of course, that I am, as you may have seen from like the books that I've been reading recently, I kind of, for reasons that are difficult to explain, sort of are sidestepped into this weird alternate history reading that I'm currently doing. As you may know, the Plot Against America is alternate history in which Charles Lindbergh becomes president in the U.S. The U.S. don't actually enter the Second World War in 1941, but like a year later or 2 years later, because Charles Lindbergh was a bit of an anti-Semite. So it's very much alternate history in that regard. And those of you who know the Yiddish Policeman's Union by Michael Chabon might know that that one is also a bit of an alternate history, as is, of course, Cahokia Jazz that I read recently and that I actually wanted to do a video about. So I'm wondering whether this might turn into like alternate history week, where I just make videos about like a couple of alternate history novels, and we can maybe learn something from all of them and how they sort of relate to each other, how they're doing stuff. And maybe we can draw some conclusions from like what alternate history does, why people write alternate history, and so forth. If that's the case, I should probably also read, in this case, reread Lavi Tidar's wonderful Unholy Land, which is in an interesting relationship with the Yiddish Policemen's Union, which also is in an interesting relationship to Cahokia Jazz, in that it does use very similar stylings to the Yiddish Policemen's Union, those being hard-boiled detective stories, and that, there's that. So maybe I'm doing that. I am not yet quite sure, but it feels like an easy project to have like a couple of videos, maybe have them all, do them all the same way, and then end the whole thing with well, a bit of a roundup on like general thoughts on alternate history and why is it almost always about Nazis in some way or form. Um, I mean, at least when you also take stuff like, say, The Man in the High Castle and Fatherland and stuff like that into account. So apparently there's a lot of people that go, what if the Nazis won? A question that I would rather not answer because it would have sucked. Um, anyway, so these are ideas for videos. And of course, the big one, but that will definitely take a while, is the conspiracy fiction video, for which I am doing all this terrible reading of, well, Dan Brown and of currently the American Literature and the Rise of the Christian Right, and for which I read the incredibly terrible, shitty Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, and for which I'm doing a lot of this reading, which is why I reread, for example, also The Morning of the Magicians. I keep forgetting whether I mentioned that one last week or not, because, time's all a blur and I'm reading way too many books. And yeah. Anyway, The Morning of the Magicians by two French writers whose name I have already forgot, Jacques Bergier and Louis Powell. That's the names, right? So anyway, all of this stuff is related for all kinds of weird reasons, and we'll have to talk about the weirdness there at some future point as well. So this is video plans for the upcoming week. But I think it kind of shows something interesting, and that's kind of when I want to tie it back to what I mentioned about the videos that I did last week. See, Me making plans for what videos to do in the future is always a bit shaky because my interest jumps around in a lot of ways. I'm currently, unfortunately, waiting for a new doctor's appointment so I can like get a new ADHD medication, which ran out last week. So my mind is slipping fast. Which means I'm jumping between topics and ideas and so forth. On the other hand, I do firmly believe in, doing stuff when it feels right, which is, for example, why I did the video on the whole death of epic fantasy, which, it just felt right at the moment. And I think with the way I do video stuff, going sort of like where my inspiration takes me, going by gut instinct, I think is helpful because then I have like energy, then I have enthusiasm, then I'm hopefully giving a better performance than when I'm just doing something because I feel I really have to. So there's that. The other interesting part is, of course, that the video that I just did on the whole death of epic fantasy is doing like incredibly like 6 times as well as the In Ascension video, which is sad in a lot of ways because In Ascension is a really good book. It got longlisted for a Booker Prize. That we're talking about like high quality literature, and very few people are watching that video. Whereas when I just go and do a bit of drama and whatnot, um, tagging other booktubers, suddenly 300 of you watch that video and engage and talk and talk and talk, and that is unfortunately kind of what proves sort of like reinforces the point that I was trying to make with that video. Is like it's much easier to sort of have videos be successful if you latch on to either personal drama and stuff, or at least jump into an ongoing debate. Whereas making a video about a good book that very few people have talked about within the fantasy and science fiction space, there's like a couple of videos from last year about In Ascension, and that's it. Like no one watches that because very few people have sadly read In Ascension beyond the 5 people that have commented on it. and that kind of brings you to that, or me in this case, obviously, to the questions like, what kind of videos am I making and for what reason, and in what which way, for example. It's like, would making a video about each of these alternate history books that I'm currently reading or rereading, would that work? If I make a video on the plot against America, and then I make a video on the Yiddish Policemen's Union, and then I make a video on Cahokia Jazz, and then I make a video on Fatherland, and one on Unholy Land, and one on possibly The Man in the High Castle, chances are like those videos with my current channel size will get somewhere between, I don't know, 30 and, if I'm lucky, 70 views, depending on which book it is, and so forth. And if I then make a video on, say, what I've learned from reading six or seven alternate history books, that video might maybe get a few more. On the other hand, if I would make a video and call it like my top 10 or just like top 10 alternate history books you need to read, that one might actually sort of blow up. And that's sort of like the frustrating part, is that this flattens discourse in a lot of ways. And each of these books that I'm currently talking about deserves a full conversation, right? I can talk about, the plot of Against America for like 20, 30 minutes because I think it's worth that. It's Philip Roth. Is not exactly, a little few, he's a bit of a well-known author in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of stuff packed into that book, and it deserves 20 minutes or 30 minutes of conversation. On the other hand, if I pack all of these and just rank them, that kind of falls to the wayside. And that's sort of like where I'm struggling, was like, well, I mean, not necessarily struggling, because obviously it's not like I'm making a lot of money with these videos, like somewhere between $4 and $5 per month through YouTube ads, which is a lot. No, it means I get a payout of $70 once per year, because $70 is the payment threshold for AdSense. Anyway, my point is, I'm always wondering, is like, is it worth it, in the sense that are there ways for me to make more people listen to me when I talk about books? Because at the end of the day, I want you to read these books and think about them. I don't want to just give you like a, I don't know, a tier ranking or whatever, which would only work if you then go and, read these books simply because I tell you that this is my favorite book or whatever. Maybe some of you actually trust me this much. I wouldn't. but I feel like having an actual discussion on like what's going on in these books is much more fruitful. But if I do like 5 videos of that sort of thing in like 1 week, say like one per day for like alternate history week, yeah, chances are that like even all of these together will like have like less views than me yelling about how booktubers getting the whole idea of epic fantasy dying off wrong. And that's kind of sad because technically we're booktube, we're not booktuber drama tube, you know what I mean? And I wish I knew what to do about it. I don't, which is sad. And I'm definitely always going to do like sort of like these more like meta discussions because it's something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in like politics and the way that fandom studies work, stuff like that. I'm always interested in that. Um, but I also really want to talk about books. So that's sort of like what I'm struggling with here on the one hand. The other part is, of course, me trying to build this larger video once again on conspiracy fiction in a lot of ways, which may or may not, get any attention because it'll be longer. I don't think it will be as long as, say, the Arthur video from last year. I hope it will not. But there, I need to talk about individual books as well because I want to relate them to each other. And then I'm sitting here like, well, if I make an individual video about each of these books, about Holy Blood and Holy Grail, which I really don't want to do, and one on Mornings of the Magician, and one about the Illuminatus trilogy, and one about Foucault's Pendulum, and one on the Da Vinci Code, is like chances are y'all will only watch like the ones that you're interested in, and then the whole argument will fall apart. So I need to kind of smack all of these into one video. Ignore the idea that those will be, spoiler-filled conversations about books, and yeah, but chances are that that also will not do well because it's maybe like an hour video, and a lot of you probably don't have the time and nerve to sit through me rambling for an hour, like or 2 hours, depending on what I'm talking about, because you all got things to do, right? So I don't know. It's just something that I'm thinking about a lot, because you know I tried. My goal, I think, is to do stuff with BookTube that goes beyond having just wrap ups, having um, book hauls, unhauls, tier lists, and so forth. There's a lot of people doing that, and they're probably much better at it than I would ever be. But I think there's stuff that BookTube could do and that it's not always doing. And I'm trying to figure out what kind of stuff we can do, where we can sort of like have a longer conversation about aspects of reading, about aspects of books and aspects of fiction that go beyond just talking about the tropes within a book and calling it like, praising a magic system and praising good character work or whatever, and losing out on all of that because I firmly believe that it is possible to have a deep and meaningful conversation about any book ever written. It's always possible to do that. And you don't need to be incredibly educated to have that conversation. All you need to do is read the book and have the time to reflect. And, and that's something I want to show here when I do these videos. Like, hey, look, this is, well, more or less of a well-known science fiction book. I can talk about this. I can have like a 30-minute conversation about a terrible R.A. Salvatore novel, but there's still stuff to be learned in these books. And that's something I think we sometimes neglect to emphasize, to show that fantasy and science fiction, just like any other form of art, is worthy of discussion, is worthy of meaningful and deep discussion, and to make it as accessible as possible to everyone out there, which is, something I sometimes worry about because like it's so easy to sort of internalize that idea that we are not smart enough or not well enough educated or whatever to understand these discussions or to partake in these discussions. There's a lot of like internalized inferiority going on, I think. On the other hand, there's a lot of gatekeeping and elitism on the sides of more like official academia, and I'm trying to sort of bridge that. I'm obviously not good at it most of the time, but it's for example one of the reasons why I drink beer during my videos. It's like on the one hand, I started out doing that to overcome my anxiety of talking to a camera, but it's also I feel something that maybe makes it a bit more relatable. It's like I'm just a bloke drinking beer, talking about something that I find interesting. I'm not lecturing you in a way. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to lecture. I'm not trying to, I try to be relatable. I'm struggling with it because I'm obviously a person with a lot of issues when it comes to social interactions and so forth. I'm not a good communicator, I think, in that regard. But I'm thinking about it and trying to make deliberate choices of what to do and how to talk and how to maybe add a joke here or there to sort of make it clear that this is for everyone. You don't have to, have read 10 books on literary criticism to have that conversation with me. I haven't read 10 books on. No, wait, I maybe have by now, but you know what I mean. I'm not a trained literary critic or anything of the sorts, because anyone can do that if we just actually take the stuff seriously. And I think that's sort of something I'm trying and something I'm wrestling with. Obviously, this is once again me just like rambling about stuff. I'd love to hear your perspectives on all of this. Obviously, those of you who actually watch my navel-gazing videos are amongst the very small group of people that actually seem to care for me, which thank you very much. I really, really appreciate that. But let me know what you think about all of this. I really, really enjoy having these conversations about the medium and the form of booktube, what we're doing here. I think that meta conversation is really, really important and needs to be done constantly if we want to sort of, push push the whole medium to what it can be, instead of just the 3 or 4 standard formats. I'm always willing to have more experimental stuff, doing more experimental stuff. So that's sort of like if you want to join that conversation, I don't know, write something in the comments. I'd very much appreciate that. One final thing. Yes, I'm aware that there have been like weird freezing, frame freezes and stuff like that with the current videos. That's just the result of me using the very weird, cobbled together, fucked up technology that I'm currently using. To make any videos at all, because I still haven't found a way to to pay for a new camera or get my phone fixed in a way that it actually does work again as a camera to record stuff. So I'm still using this weird workaround where I record Zoom meetings with just myself. And for whatever reason, there's like the frame freezes from time to time. I'm really sorry about that. But until I have enough money to buy some new equipment, this is just like what it has to be, and I'm definitely a couple months out from saving enough money to to buy anything new technology in any meaningful form. So it's just like what it is for now. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking through my weird ramblings. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you read last week. Let me know what you did last week. Let me know what you plan to read this week, month, year, decade, or eon. And I'll see you very soon when we talk about probably use of weapons. And until then, thanks and cheers.